when we talked about what is the vision and national service, I think it does not begin or should not begin at the high school level. I think it needs to go to the primary school level.
Leveraging and launching our creative industries in the country.
That's gotten mixed reviews.
Well, I think what got mixed reviews is not the concept, but the labeling.
What we do today will affect those coming after us.
Good evening, Bahamas, and thanks for joining us at NB12. Coming up tonight in news, the Constitutional Commission presents 73 recommendations to the Prime Minister and Cabinet this morning. We've got a breakdown of what they are. More water disruptions ahead for water and sewage customers on New Providence. Tropical storm Chantel heads toward the Caribbean and could impact the Bahamas. Bahamian heroes recognized through commemorative stamps, and the Nassau Guardian debuts a magazine to celebrate 40 years of independence. We have those stories and much more coming up tonight. I'm Christina McNeil, and your NB12 starts right now. Joining us. After 9 months in the making, the Constitutional Commission, as promised, handed its highly anticipated recommendations report to the Prime Minister today ahead of Wednesday's 40th Independence Anniversary celebrations. Paige McCartney grabbed a copy of the nearly 250-page document at today's ceremony and fills us in this report.
In total, there are 73 recommendations in the report. However, Constitutional Commission Chairman Sean McQueenie pointed out that fewer than 30 involve actual changes to the Constitution. But the sheer amount of recommendations would mean that there needs to be more than one referendum. That's why the Commission is recommending there be rounds, with only those issues with the highest priority being brought to the Bahamian people first.
And one of those top priority issues the Commission believes should be addressed right away is that of citizenship. McQueenie said of all the matters of national interest that were brought up for discussion except for the death penalty, citizenship was unquestionably the most difficult subject the Commission had to consider. But its first recommendations is that the discriminatory language in the Constitution be removed, putting men and women on equal footing as far as the right to pass citizenship on to their children. The Commission also wants a complete relaxation of the rules regarding dual citizenship. But most notably regarding citizenship, the Commission recommends that children born in the Bahamas to both non-Bahamian parents do not get automatic citizenship.
We have taken the view that this is an issue of extraordinary complexity, and that this is the one area in which a specialized, highly focused commission or work group, whatever you call it, is required. And the recommendation in the report is that the formation of this commission to give focused study to how these persons should be treated is a matter which requires the highest priority.
The Commission has also suggested a statutory immigration board be implemented to field citizenship applications before they reach Cabinet in an effort to streamline the process. The Constitutional Commission believes an anomaly in the court structure should be corrected, providing for one Supreme Court, which includes the Court of Appeal. It also advises that the Privy Council remain the highest court in the land. However, it did suggest constitutionally limiting its power, particularly regarding the death penalty, where the Commission believes amendments should be made to the Constitution to have the capital punishment carried out in appropriate cases.
Not only that it should be retained, but that perhaps some effort ought to be made, similar to the path that Jamaica and Barbados and a few others took, and that is some attempt should be made to tie the hands of the Privy Council by prescribing in the Constitution the criteria that would have to be applied to determine whether the death penalty can be carried out or not.
On the hot-button issue of gambling, the Commission said that the issue does not need constitutional consideration. McQueenie said considering the recent gaming referendum, the Commission thought it inappropriate to make recommendations, only to say that whether Article 26(4)(e), the discriminatory law discussed highly leading up to the gambling referendum, stays in place is irrelevant as to whether Bahamians should be allowed to gamble in casinos or participate in any other form of gambling.
This is not a matter that falls for constitutional address. Article 26(4)(e) does not prohibit Bahamians from gambling in casinos, nor does it prohibit them from engaging in any other form of gaming. All it says is that if Parliament enacts such a discriminatory law, it is protected by the Constitution from challenge. Should it be decided by any government that it would wish Bahamians to be allowed to gamble in casinos or to engage in any other form of gaming, such a result could be achieved by the simple expedient of an amendment to the Lotteries and Gaming Act, removing the current restrictions.
Moving on to those laws which govern the fundamental rights of Bahamian citizens, the Commission has recommended that the right to trial by jury when charged with an indictable offense be disentrenched, making non-jury trials available under particular circumstances. To continue on its track toward gender equality, it has been recommended that the word sex be included in the articles as one of the prohibited grounds of discrimination. McQueenie stressed, however, that this in no way allows for same-sex marriages.
That not one person who came before the Commission or who spoke at any town hall meeting or wrote to us actually advocated same-sex marriage. So this, to some extent, was a phony issue. It got a lot of traction, but it seemed to come out of nowhere. No one out there was actually advocating same-sex marriage.
It's also been recommended that the Queen remain the head of state. In fact, McQueenie said recommendations to consider the Bahamas becoming a republic were resoundingly rejected. The Commission also advised that the Senate not be abolished, but rather expanded. Term limits for members of Parliament and the Prime Minister were also rejected. This while it was suggested that a truly independent electoral and boundaries commission without politicians or public officials on the board be established to ensure transparency and accountability in those processes. In addition, the Commission recommends the creation of an integrity committee to keep an eye on MPs and their actions while in power. Another suggestion is that the Prime Minister's flexibility to dissolve Parliament at will and call a snap election be limited.
And we're proposing that there should be at least a 9-month period of notice before a general election is called, but leaving intact the provisions which would enable that to be accelerated. For example, if the Prime Minister loses a no confidence motion, if there's some other fundamental event that results in the failure of the government, you should be able to accelerate the calling of elections in those cases.
Other recommendations include putting a cap on the size of cabinet to include no more than 15 ministers. McQueenie says there can be many ministers of government, but not all have to be in cabinet. There's also the suggestion of limiting the number of MPs and senators who are appointed as parliamentary secretaries. The Constitutional Commission also believes that it is a bad policy to have the Attorney General take responsibility for criminal prosecutions, suggesting that the responsibility lie with the Director of Public Prosecutions, and that a system of public defenders be introduced. For NB12, I'm Paige McCartney.
Of course, these are not all of the recommendations presented in the report. We'll have a further breakdown in another newscast. Well, Prime Minister Perry Christie commending the hard work of the Commission and lauding the group's effort to ensure the Family Islands were kept abreast and included in the process. He says the work now begins for his cabinet to sift through the recommendations and announce its stance on the issues.
We're going to read your report very carefully with a view to recognizing that the government of the Bahamas must take a position, must take it to the legislature for its support. And then, of course, ultimately, the decision is made as to the people.
In other news, officials at the Water and Sewage Corporation warn it could be weeks before consumers stop experiencing low water pressure or, in some cases, no water at all. Vonik Toot tells us which new areas will be impacted tonight.
Each night, the Water and Sewage Corporation receives anywhere between 50 and 100 calls from frustrated consumers who are either complaining of low water pressure or no water at all. Well, Deputy General Manager Robert Deal explained today that an increase in water loss has prompted the corporation to implement water conservation measures. Now, to give you an idea of the severity of this issue, he said Water and Sewerage loses 6.5 million gallons of water each day. Most of that loss is from water leakages.
Based on our numbers, also based on how quickly we can regain our strategic storage levels, then we're going to be looking at reducing, like I said, the severity of the cutbacks, the conservation measures, because we know it's negatively impacting our customers. And of course, we extend our sincere apologies to all of our customers who are negatively impacted. We know it's difficult.
New Providence residents have experienced disruptions in this essential service between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. And it seems they will have to endure this inconvenience for a few more weeks. Deal estimates that's how long it will take for Water and Sewerage to regain water storage levels and cut back on conservation measures. If you live in this area, you could be impacted tonight.
We'll be doing works in the Old Fort area, and so those customers will be impacted tonight. What we'll be doing is putting in place a new pressure reducing valve in that area to control the water entering that area.
Where's that, Old Fort?
Yeah, what we call the Old Fort District. That's essentially from Blake Road, go around to the Old Fort area.
Deal says their aim is to ensure cutbacks happen island-wide instead of just one area. Muriel Williams, who has lived in Elizabeth Estates since 1986, says the disruption in her water supply is a huge inconvenience.
Since the road had finished, I think the water here had improved because I didn't have any problem, with the water until the last 2 to 3 weeks. Water would go off like in the evenings. We don't even have a pump in Elizabeth Estate that you can go to. It's very inconvenient here if your water goes off.
However, water and sewerage officials have stressed that in order to eliminate cutbacks, they must first reduce the large amount of water lost through leaks and illegal connections. That's known as non-revenue water. Deal says steps are currently being taken to significantly reduce non-revenue water. Here in Elizabeth Estates, we met workers digging up these leaky service laterals. These are essentially taps that direct water to consumers.
The non-revenue water project, that's a 10-year project, but over the first 5 years, the goal is to reduce non-revenue water from the current levels of approximately 6.5 million gallons per day to 2.5 million gallons per day.
The corporation's $81 million non-revenue water project began in January. Government awarded the 5-year contract to an Israeli firm. It involves revamping this island's groundwater system. As part of the project, the contractor is replacing 15,000 questionable service laterals. 1,200 have been replaced thus far. Reporting for NB12, I'm Vonique Toot.